The Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. This is the game review podcast of the game played between the Eels and the Warriors last Friday night over there at Go Media Stadium in Auckland in New Zealand, which the Eels won 30 points to 20. How good is that? Always good to get a win on a Friday night. Makes your weekend feel a lot better, especially after 6 losses in a row. Chuck in 2 byes there, so 8 weeks between victories for the Eels, so it was sensational to get a win. Certainly made a lot of fans feel really good to get a win, even though their season is over. They cannot make the finals, but they do create a little bit of a gap between them and the West Tigers down the bottom of the ladder. So always good to get a win, no matter what position on the ladder you are at. Now, it was played in front of 23,812 fans over there in New Zealand. So now I really congratulate the fans and members of the New Zealand Warriors in particular, as well, as it was a sellout, and also they have created history by selling out every single home game this season in 2024, a rugby league record never been done before from a club. So it is a testament to you guys, the fans and members of the Warriors, and also, look, the away fans as well that go to each and every game, because there was a lot of travelling Eels fans over there, so shout out to you guys and girls who went over to New Zealand for the game. I know of a couple that went over there, as it is their favourite game of the year. Oh, they love going to New Zealand to watch it. It was the first time Parramatta have played in New Zealand since 2017, so it had been a long time since we had played over there. And also shout out to the Kiwi Eels fans as well over there as well. There was a lot of them on the TV screens throughout the coverage. Now, as I said, the game was won by the Eels, 30 points to 20. It was 5 tries to 4 in the end, with Clint Gutherson kicking 5 from 5. Sean Johnson had a kick at goal, and Chanel Harris-Tavita had a kick at goal as well. 2 conversions for them, 2 out of 4. So 2 conversions missed by the Warriors. Look, I guess one little bit of a disappointing factor in that game as an Eels fan, despite getting the win, I guess, was the 16 points scored in the last 10 minutes from Warriors tries. So they scored 3 tries in that last 10 minutes. Sean Johnson and Chanel Harris-Tavita did convert those goals. So 16 points. Look, Jake Tungo was off the field at the time. In the 74th minute, he got sin bin, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And look, as I said, that's a little bit disappointing, because it looked like it was going to be a pretty comprehensive win to the Eels, but I think, as I said, a little bit disappointing in the end. Look, those tries to the Warriors, well, look, it was a little bit hard to say that. It was 18-4 at half-time, so a pretty comprehensive lead at half-time by the Eels. And look, the first try, and we'll go back to the first try, that was scored by Jake Tungo. He was about 9 metres, the Eels were about 9 metres out. They spread the ball to the left, Jake had a bit of work to do, but he scored in the corner just like he did last week against the Storm. And funnily enough, he also got sin bin in this game as well, like he did last week against the Melbourne Storm as well. So he scored the first try and got sin bin. So hopefully he can go the hat trick this week against Penrith, playing against his brother. But I think just not the hat-trick of the sin binning. The hat-trick of first tries, that'd be great. But Jake, if you can stay on the field for the whole game, that'd be awesome as well. The second try was through Joey Lussick. Now, he came onto the field pretty early in the piece due to Brendan Hands going off the ground for a HIA. Look, he got into dummy half. They were about 10 metres out. He saw an opportunity. He took that opportunity and scooted 10 metres, beating defenders, and he scored what was probably a smart dummy half try. So a really smart dummy half play, that one from Joey Lussick, playing up against his brother Freddie as well in the game as well. So very good. That's probably one of the highlights for Joey this season. I don't think he has had the best season of what he would think he would have had. And certainly it was a great try to get Parramatta off to a pretty good lead. It was 12-0 at that stage after Clint Gutherson converted. The third try went to the Warriors and went the Warriors' way through Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Now, look, some would say there's a little bit of controversy about that with the decoy runner coming through the line and making contact with Dylan Brown, which made him pause and then have to chase over to the corner. Probably maybe denied him a little bit of a better shot at Roger in the corner, but Dylan was the last one that Roger beat to score. So the bunker deemed it a try. It was confirmed. A little bit of a talking point that came out of that one. The fourth try, Dejan Arce, a great try, and another, a former Warriors player, and you could see that he was excited about scoring that try against his former club. Look, Gutho was just drifting across field, just looking for that runner who was going to get into that hole. So he did that. He drifted across field. Didn't look like much was on. He found Arce. He threw a short ball to him, and Arce was through the gap and just basically scored untouched. And he was pretty happy about that. He kicked the ball into the crowd for scoring that try. And look, Parramatta fans were probably happy about that as well, because Mitchell Moses being out for this part of the season, or the rest of the season, Arce is now the number one halfback at the club, and number one in terms of playing first grade anyway. Personally, I would probably have Ethan Sanders there, but look, that doesn't look like it is going to be the case for the rest of the year. So Arce is the number one fullback at the moment at the club, so good to see him get a try over there in New Zealand. Blaise Talangi, he was certainly in the news last week before this game, announcing that he would not be at the Parramatta Eels in 2025. Rumours going around that he will land at the Penrith Panthers, so a good get for them. Has not been confirmed yet, so stay tuned for that confirmation, but he has told the club that he will be leaving. He did score a try. Good little combination there with Dylan Brown, who, again, great ball playing from Dylan. He saw that Blaise, or saw that Blaise was there, got a great short ball to him, and again, Blaise running a great line, got through the gap, scores untouched, and look, that was a great try. That was in the second half. As I said before, the Eels went into the lead, 18 points to 4 at half-time. Before half-time, just going back a little bit there was a chance for Sean Johnson to convert a penalty from I guess you could say nearly sort of, or just off in front, but unfortunately missed that. Well, fortunately for Parramatta, missed that one, so it was 18-4 at half time. But that was the first try in the second half. The second try in the second half, look, that was Gutho's try, and look, didn't he have a game? That is for sure. We'll get into that a little bit later, but look, he kicked 5 from 5. And this try was basically Dylan Brown. He got the ball out wide. He got around Chanel Harris-Tavita, broke the line, and look, as any good fullback would be doing, he was backing up on the inside. Dylan got the ball to him, and Gutho went over as well and converted that one. Look, the Warriors, they scored the next 3 tries after that. Chance Nickel-Clockster, he scored. Murata Niokore, former Parramatta Eels player, he scored the next try for the Warriors. Look, it looked like to me Blaze rushed up a little bit in defence. He thought the ball was maybe going to Chance, like it did last time when Chance scored his try. Created a little bit of a gap, and Murata was able to get through and score the try. The last try was right on the 79th minute. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. I guess that one was a good vision from Sean Johnson, who kicked it across field, found some open space, and Dallin, DWZ, scored for the Warriors another try this season. So, in the end, it was 30 points to 20 in favour of the Eels. 5 tries to 4. Clint Gutherson, as I said before, 5 out of 5 with the boot. He had a great game. He was voted the player of the match by yourselves, the listeners. I put up a post the other day about who you thought was player of the match. Many people said Gutho, or the majority of people said Gutho. Look, a few people mentioned Arcee as well. He had one of his best games for Parramatta on Friday night. And a couple of people mentioned Brendan Hands as well as having a good game as well. But look, you can't deny Gutho, he had a great game, 5 from 5 with the boot, scored a try, 225 running metres as well. So, yeah, he was probably the player of the match from a Parramatta perspective. And, look, just a few other stats to come out of this game as well. I mentioned running metres there. Gutho was the top run meter with 225. Joe Ofahengawi, 169 metres from 18 runs. Now, interesting enough from Joe O, he got placed on report for a tackle on Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. A little bit of a, I guess you could say, groping incident, I guess you could say, in a male's nether regions. So Dallin mentioned that to the referee, and Joe was put on report. Nothing has come out of that one. I guess it was just a rugby league tackle. In the end, he wouldn't have done anything like that on purpose. Dylan Brown, who we did see run the football a lot of times, 15 in fact, 146 metres from Dylan, and we're seeing that from him week in, week out over this last part of the season. Ryan Madison as well, he had one of his better games for the club, 18 runs, 145 metres. Will Penasini, 135 metres off 19 runs. When it comes to tackles, as I mentioned, Brendan Hands, he had a good game as well, 45 tackles, and I do recall there was one tackle there where he forced the Warriors player back into in-goal, and Parramatta got a repeat set from that. So a great effort there. 45 tackles in all. Maddo, 39. Bryce Cartwright, 38. Sean Lane and Regan Campbell-Gillard, 32 tackles each, and Arcee, 29 tackles. Now, when it comes to possession, it was a little bit different in that one. The Warriors had more possession, 52%. Their completion rate was 82%, 37 sets out of 45. For the Eels, they had 48% and 31 out of 41 for a completion rate of 75%. So a little bit down on the Warriors, which is a little bit of a concern, I guess you could say, for Parramatta with those handling errors and not completing sets. Always very, very much a concern. It was probably thankful for them that they got out to that early lead, and then early in that second half they managed to build on that first half score. But the handling errors would be a concern for Parramatta. The offloads, we all know that Parramatta is a offloading team. 12 offloads to the Warriors, 9. Missed tackles, again, a concern for Parramatta, 37 to the Warriors, 27. And I mentioned the Jake Tungo sin-binning as well, second week in a row after scoring the first try as well. So, look, a pretty good win for the Eels, a much-needed win for the Eels. Gave them a little bit, I guess you could say, confidence going into this big game against the Panthers this week at Combank Stadium. Look, it's going to be difficult to beat the Panthers as they had a good win and they are high-flying in second spot on the ladder. The Panthers beating the Newcastle Knights at home. And look, it is the Battle of the West. And look, perhaps despite where these two teams are faced on the ladder, it is the Battle of the West. They are rivals. You don't know what's going to happen. The Eels may just step it up in this game. You just don't know. We'll have to wait and see what the team lineups look like, but I think you'll find they're pretty much the same as this weekend. But yeah, as I said, the Battle of the West, it can do strange things. So the second game last year, Parramatta, they were down and out, not making semi-finals. They got the win against the Panthers in the second last round, I think it was, by memory, round 26. I think the Eels had a bye the last week of the competition, regular competition. So round 26, and that game was played at Penrith. So look, this will be an interesting game, this one coming up. More about that one coming up in the tipping podcast coming up during the week, early on in the week. So stay tuned for that one. As I mentioned before, the Panthers, they beat the Newcastle Knights at home. But this was a much-needed win for the Eels. Look, it's not going to help them make finals, but it just gives them that confidence going into this game against their rivals on Friday night. So yeah, a much-needed win for the Eels. Look, a lot of people thought going over to New Zealand with the Warriors still playing for their finals chances, it would be very tough for the Eels to get this victory, and they may even get flogged in this game, but they certainly turned that around. They got off to the perfect start. They scored the first two tries, and they got on with the job. So that was good to see. They held the lead at half time, and thankfully they held on to get the victory, unlike we have seen in previous games, most notably against the Dolphins up there in Darwin when they played them earlier on in the year. But look, in a traumatic week, I guess you could say, a big news week for the Eels with Blaise Talangi leaving the club. Then there was rumours about Charlie Geimer wanting a release, leaving the club as well. So look, it was a very busy week, I guess you could say, off the field as well for the Eels. So it was good to see them get the win in first grade over there against the Warriors. Look, I'm going to turn my attention now to the NRLW, and unfortunately I didn't have my special guest on this week, but we are in the mix of getting that organised for next week, so I do apologise for that, and the special guest apologises for that as well. Look, this is understandable. That is understandable, and we will get that rectified as soon as possible. But to the NRLW game, and the Eels played the Sharks at Allianz Stadium. They unfortunately went down 18 points to 16. Now, this was I guess you could say, although a loss, a tremendous result, because the last time these two teams played, it was a massive victory to the Sharks. The Sharks, I think, put 56 points on the Eels, and look, I think this was a massive result for the Eels, although they did not win the game. So it was a good game. This was on at 12 o'clock yesterday, Sunday, and played at the SFS. Now, one player who had a big game, I thought, was Elsie Albert as well, the front rower for Parramatta. It's good to see Elsie back playing rugby league. Last season, she was mostly injured for the season, so we didn't get to see her play much, if at all, last season for the Eels. Also, Rachel Pearson as well, the current State of Origin halfback, didn't play much football last year, but is certainly making a difference in this current Eels side of 2024. Speaking of Elsie, she did a good run early on in the game and offloaded to Kennedy Charrington. Now, she also had a massive game, got 2 points in the Dally M race for 2024. She had a big game, 17 runs, 132 metres, scored a try as well. And when it comes to tackling, well, bit of a tackling machine, Kennedy, 42 tackles. Look, I think there was a period of play there that I just saw Kennedy make about 3, possibly 4 tackles in the set. Unbelievable effort to do that sort of things. It was unbelievable to see that, I guess, to do 3 or 4 tackles in a set. So that is a huge effort, and no wonder she got a couple of points in the Dally M points system. So well done to Kennedy. Look, a lot of people would probably say that she was the Eels player of the match. Look, another player who I thought was really good yesterday for the Parramatta Eels was Rory Owen. Amazing. I think this is her second game in NRLW. Scored a try and 181 run meters. Absolutely unbelievable. That was an amazing effort. That was from 17 runs, 181 metres, I should say, in running metres. Absolutely outstanding. 30-odd metres more than the Cronulla Sharks' Tiana Penatani, who had 155. So, look, a magnificent effort there. I thought she was the player of the game for the Eels. Monique Donovan also got over for a try. That was in the corner. Goal kicking was the difference in the game. It was 3 tries all, with Taylor Preston from the Cronulla Sharks kicking 3 from 3. The Rachel Pearson, the goal kicker for the Eels, got 2 from 3. The Eels were 10-6 in front at half-time, and you just thought that it could still be anybody's game at half-time because the gap was only 4 points. But in saying that, the Sharks, they do have a reasonably more experienced side than the Parramatta Eels, but the Eels really stuck it to them. And look, I just think that one of the Cronulla tries through Anessa Biddle, who got some points in the Dally M race as well. I guess you could say it was probably a little bit of a lucky kick, I guess. I think it was a grubber kick from Taylor Preston and just sort of bounced off an Eels player, I think it was, and then straight into the arms of Vanessa Biddle, and she went over to score. She put the ball down and scored. Previous to that, there was a missed opportunity from Anessa, and unfortunately for her, and fortunately for the Eels, she dropped the ball with the line wide open. So it was, that was a missed opportunity there from her, but she made up for it with a try shortly after, which was the game-sealing try, as Taylor Preston converted after that try in the 65th minute of the game. So, look, overall, I think it was a courageous effort from the Eels. They had more possession. They completed better than the Sharks. So, look, I think the Eels, they are developing a good game under new coach Steve Georgalis. They, as I mentioned before, Elsie Albert and Rachel Pearson, they are making a difference to this side after not playing a lot of football last season. Kennedy Cherrington herself didn't play a lot of football last year. I think through suspension by memory. There was a couple there that kept her out of the team for a while. Unfortunately for the Eels, a couple of players, Boss Kapoa, I think it is, and Ruben Cherrington are unfortunately out for the season for the Eels from last week's game against the Brisbane Broncos. So a little bit unfortunate there, but I thought the Eels on Sunday played really well and unfortunately didn't come away with the win. It was their first loss of the season. Look, it is only round number 2 in this competition, so there is, I think, still 7 rounds to go before finals, with it being a 10-team competition. So, look, you want to win games early on in the NRLW. We have seen in the past where if you start to drop a few games at the start of the season, with it being a shortened season compared to the NRL, it is very difficult to make your way into finals. It is a top 4 system in the NRLW in a 10-team competition. So scoring points and winning games is very crucial in this competition to make that top 4, because there's only 1 week of semi-finals and then the grand final. So it's a very hard, as I said, if you start to lose games at the start of the season, then it does make it very hard to come back from that. But the Eels, they are two games played, 1 win, 1 loss. They sit on 2 points in the competition. They sit in 6th spot with a points differential of 10 points. Their next opponent is the North Queensland Cowboys, and that game will be played at Totally Workwear Stadium up in Brisbane, Sunday the 11th of August, 12 p.m. against the Cowboys there. So 6th playing 7th, the Cowboys having a win over the Dragons last night up there in Townsville. The Sharks, they take on the Raiders. The Sharks now sit in 2nd spot on the ladder, having won both games throughout the NRLW season. They've won both games, and their next opponent is Canberra. So that'll be an interesting game. Canberra just ahead of Parramatta, having won on the weekend as well. So, look, big games, all big games in the NRLW. As I said, only a 4-team final series. The Titans, Sharks and Knights, they have won both of their games this season, so they sit in 1st, 2nd and 3rd, both on 4 points. The Newcastle Knights, obviously the defending premiers and one of the favourites of the NRLW, and probably one of the big news things out of the NRLW is the Brisbane Broncos. A pretty star-studded side on 0 points at the moment. 2 losses in a row. They lost last week against the Sydney Roosters, and then the week before they lost against the Parramatta Eels. So they sit in ninth position on the ladder with 0 points. So not doing too well, unfortunately. And as I said, they do have a star-studded side. So big game for them next week against the Gold Coast Titans, who sit on top of the ladder. They have a pretty handy squad themselves, so a bit of a Queensland rivalry there. The other side on zero, or the other two sides on 0 points are the Dragons and the West Tigers. So they will be wanting to get wins as well this weekend, just to try and stay in touch with that top four. So next week in the NRLW, we see the following. We'll have the NRL tipping podcast come out on late Tuesday night, so you may catch that into Wednesday morning. But for next week, the NRLW, I'll let you know now what is happening. Saturday, the 10th of August, the Roosters take on the Tigers at Industry Group Stadium. That one's up in Gosford. Mentioned the Sharks versus the Raiders. That's down at GIO Stadium, 12:45pm on Saturday. So 2 games on the Saturday, 3 on the Sunday. The third game is the first game on Sunday, the 11th of August at Totally Workwear Stadium, Brisbane. So a double header there, as the first game is the North Queensland Cowboys taking on the Parramatta Eels. The second game is that Queensland derby that I spoke of. And the last game of the NRLW round, which rounds it out, Sunday, the 11th of August, 6:10pm at McDonald Jones Stadium, sees the Newcastle Knights take on the St George Illawarra Dragons. So there is a little bit of a recap of the Eels game in the NRLW and a little bit about the NRLW. As I said, I hope to get my special guest on next week, who has played NRLW, and we will review the games in this round that I just spoke about, and also do a career talk as well, bit of an interview as well. So looking forward to that one as well. And as I said, I think this is maybe something that you guys, the listeners, will be interested in hearing about. I certainly try and catch as much NRLW action as possible, not so much the Saturday games, as I am at work on the Saturday, so I have to try and catch a replay of those ones if possible. The Sunday games I definitely try and tune in, especially if Parramatta's playing, that is for sure, just to stay up to date with that one and watch their progression as well throughout this competition. So it is something that I enjoy watching. It is a different game to the men's game, and very exciting to watch, and it is only growing and growing and growing. So I thought I would do a little bit of a recap for you. Let me know if that's what you like and enjoy listening to, and we'll keep on doing more of it. So thank you very much for listening to this episode, the game review of the Eels and Warriors and the Eels and Sharks in the NRLW. Please, if you like it, share it with your family and friends. Leave a 5-star rating and review on the podcast platform that you listen to. Please give the podcast a follow on Instagram, Facebook as well. That would be most appreciated as well. Enjoy your week to come, and enjoy your football on the weekend coming up as well. Thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. Go Para!
Hello, Paracave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Paracave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.